Hey, you're on.
All right. Today's topic, based on a true story. So you can think about what you think when you read based on a true story. Do your expectations about accuracy change if you see this at the beginning? Today, of course, everything we've been talking about is based on a true story, but what's I supposed to do with that?
This is like
This is contemporary true story. Yes, sir.
Well, it's more like how people say it's based on
Yeah.
a true story and how they say they're going
Yes.
to try to connect it to real events
Yes.
as possible.
So what I'm talking about today is specifically in more recent events, the idea being that you could check that the people involved are still around so you could go ask them. Things that are really too recent to be considered strictly historical. Now, a great example is All the President's Men, when we talk about recent history. Now, for you guys, this is not recent history. None of you were born when this happened. But when this book was written and a movie made from it, it was just the next year. I mean, it was hot off the press news. And all the people that were involved in it were still around. As a matter of fact, I think both Woodward and Bernstein are still alive. Woodward's still alive. I'm not sure about Bernstein. Anyway, I believe they're still alive. So, even though it's 40 years ago, it was made 2 years after Nixon's resignation. It was easy to find actual interviews with actual people, and at this point, when this came out, everybody knew what happened. It wasn't like going to be a big shocker, that the president resigns. What the story is about is how it happened, all the detailed background information. The more famous an incident is, the harder it is to alter it. These are two movies coming out. Now, Battle of the Sexes, anybody know who these two people are? Well,
Stephen Brown.
yeah. Bobby Riggs was a huge tennis star that was like an old man, like, who's the curly-headed redhead guy? John McEnroe. Imagine if John McEnroe challenged, I don't know who John McEnroe. Okay, so this guy was a big star, but he was a has-been. This Billie Jean King was an up-and-coming star, and he came out and said,
Is that Ben Stiller playing that dude?
no, that's Steve Carell. But he came out and said, any man can beat any woman because men are inherently better than women. So this was a very famous tennis match, and it got huge press, lots of coverage. And so most of the people who will be watching this, most of the adults anyway, remember this happening. This is very famous, and you'll have to tune in to see who wins.
I'm not going to tell you.
You can just look it up.
Yes, or go see the movie, because Billie Jean King is a great American hero that you should all know.
Billie Jean.
Meanwhile, this one is coming out, and this is also a true story about this guy who was a pilot. He was also a drug smuggler, and he was working for the CIA and the cartels and everybody else. They could make up this whole story, and none of us are going to know the difference. Whereas they cannot make up this whole story. You guys won't know the difference, but Dr. Wineland and I will. So the more well-publicized it is, the more famous it was when it happened, the harder it is to monkey with it. This thing is going to be mostly entertaining here. And if they take some liberties with the truth, well, it's like a comic adventure movie. But the Billie Jean King movie, if they were to significantly change things, people would give it really bad reviews. They would be pretty ticked off. We got a couple others coming out. This one is about a guy in the Boston Marathon bombing. He wrote a book, a memoir, and now he's being interviewed. So this guy is essentially Jake Gyllenhaal's age. He's there on the set. He's there all the time. This, on the other hand, I don't know if you guys remember General Stanley McChrystal. He was a hotshot general, so he gave an interview to Rolling Stone where they let the guy from Rolling Stone follow him around, and he had no self-filtering or anything, so the guy from Rolling Stone got to see everything they did and everything they talked about. And then Rolling Stone published an article that showed basically that this guy had some personal issues that he should not be talking about in front of reporters. And so it didn't really make him look like, like a terrible criminal or anything, but it was really, really poor judgment to be yourself in front of Rolling Stone. So he got fired. So, but
That's why I'm never.
this is a satire. It's sort of a comedic take. I couldn't even watch the whole movie. We watched like half of it.
Why is that bad?
Well, I don't know that much about the subject to begin with, and it's a really sort of, war and military is just crazy, everything's all screwed up. It just didn't really, it wasn't that bad, it's just not interesting. But
I saw the trailer and I laughed at the first two lines where it was like, all right, we're doing something. And I'm just like, oh.
yeah, and I think maybe if you're a military insider, it's funny, but I didn't know enough, so. Anyway.
I didn't think that would be funny.
Yeah. So, let's see. So these are all things that just are coming out this year. Also coming out this year, based on a true story, 9/11, which is a drama depicting 5 elevator passengers who were trapped during the September 11 attacks. Based on a true story in that there were people trapped in elevators, there was the attack.
Just imagine being trapped in an elevator with Charlotte.
Probably me.
Oh,
But this is entirely fictionalized. Is even based on true people I don't know. But you're getting farther away from the based on a true story to the one that like everybody knew about, to hang on a second, to the one that not that many people know about, the one's a recent memoir that they're right there, to the other one that's making a joke out of the whole thing, to this that it's sort of inspired by. And then we get The Institute, which is also based on a true story about a woman in an insane asylum in the 19th century, and it's being sold as a horror movie.
Sounds about right.
Also based on a true story. Yes, Adrian?
I was gonna say with the 9/11 movie, couldn't they also just, condense a bunch of true accounts that they piled together into fictional characters?
Absolutely, absolutely. But what I'm saying is the term based on a true story is very fluid. And for our expectations of it, for our knowledge of it, and for what they might, this is based on terrifying true events. So.
Sounds like most of them do.
So you guys could see this and see what you think. These are both true stories. And they're very, very similar stories. Both of these movies are about people who were in an industry that was corrupt, who agreed to be informants for the FBI or for the media, who basically were whistleblowers and outed the whole thing. Which one of these do you think is a comedy? Yeah. So they're very similar stories about ordinary guys who had to get up the courage to give up their careers and put their own well-being at risk to tell the true story. And this one, of course, got lots of awards and made Russell Crowe a star. This one is just ridiculous. And it's not even a really good movie because it has such a weird tone that this guy is such an idiot, and yet, the issues they're dealing with are pretty serious. So again, you can tell that most of the time when they're telling a true story, they're trying to tell you a pretty serious, this is important drama. Sometimes they're just making fun of the guy. Back to All the President's Men. Who is Robert Redford in this movie talking to on the phone?
Well, a guy by the name of Deep Throat.
Robert Redford, 1976, is in fact talking to Liam Neeson in 2017 in this phone call.
It's time travel.
This is a new movie coming out, which is it's All the President's Men. A lot of All the President's Men have to do with the fact that they're getting all their information from a secret source. And for, what was it, like 40 years, we didn't know who the secret source was? And then about 5 years ago, we found out
It was Liam Neeson.
it was Liam Neeson. So it was Mark Felt.
Yeah.
So,
Because he has a particular set of skills to make him very dangerous.
exactly. And Mark Felt's particular set of skills was that he knew all the inside dirt, and he called up the Washington Post, and he ratted him out. So this, again, is going to be the same story that was told before, the same true story, but it's going to be told from a different point of view. And because this is all pretty much well documented, we kind of know, where it's going. So this is very interesting, again, because it's something we already know. So pretty much we expect the Mark Felt movie to be the inside dirt, but supporting all of the events, and also because, we've already read his book. Not me, but the book has already come out, we already know what's in it. So there's not going to be anything shocking or untrue, or although pretty shocking, untrue in that one. Have you ever seen any of these? At the beginning of a movie.
Every movie ever made.
Yeah. This one's especially good, right?
Boom, boom, boom.
Oh, I saw recently for the trailer of, for the trailer for 12 Strong, it said the declassified story of the horse soldiers.
Okay, so what legal weight do these phrases carry?
Very big.
Zero.
Huh?
Zero. There's absolutely no weight in any of these. It does not mean anything legally. You can say whatever you want. As a matter of fact, let's see. This one is from, anybody know?
Law and Order?
Return of the Living Dead.
Who?
What?
Well, it's from a zombie movie.
Really?
No, we know the movie. It's
Yes.
Never
Yeah.
heard of it.
This one is from the film Fargo,
Fargo.
which is entirely made up.
I think it's all true. It's a documentary.
Yeah. And
The events?
no, I thought that I had another one up here. Maybe I've got it later. This is the one that is my favorite.
Poorly.
Should not be the event.
Yeah, and part of this is they people threaten to sue them a lot, but also The Simpsons. Generally speaking, when you hear a guest voice on The Simpsons, it's the real people. Michael Jackson came on The Simpsons. If you hear someone claiming to be, President Carter really played himself on The Simpsons. So
But then South Park is just.
South Park is making it very clear, don't sue us. We're not even doing a good job. Nobody takes us seriously, so leave us alone. This is not a documentary. So none of this is a legal statement. The legal statement is at the end, where you see all characters in this are entirely fictitious, and any similarity, living or dead, is entirely accidental. That's the legal statement. Anything you see at the beginning saying, it's all true, I was abducted by aliens, it means nothing. Mostly it means, don't sue us. Some people are pretty cool about this. Some people aren't. So, anybody see The Social Network?
No, but I know
I did.
the
Yeah.
character.
So when you saw The Social Network, did anyone think that Mark Zuckerberg was a real jerk? Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that Mark Zuckerberg is a real jerk today?
I do.
Probably.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, it depends on how recently you saw the movie. So I've showed you this before. This is, Mark coming on Saturday Night Live with Jesse Eisenberg, who played him. Now, a lot of people get really bent out of joint if you portray them in a negative light. And in some cases, especially in print journalism, it's a lot easier to sue. It's viewed as a news story, and it's saying, you went out with hookers on this date. Well, if you didn't go out with the hookers on that date, you know, and you have proof that you were in church, you've got a pretty good case. It's harder with drama because everybody's sort of going into it with a, yeah, you know, well, this is the sort of thing. And unless you're saying exact dates, exact things, you can pretty much say that somebody's a jerk without successfully
Don't do it to me
suing.
anything.
Yeah. So you gotta ask yourself, you know, is the film meant, or a novel, or nonfiction, meant to show exactly what happened, or is it more of a biography or a character study? Usually writing is more precise. You know, if you read it in print, they're more careful about getting everything correct and legal and don't sue me than if, say, South Park, you know, does an episode of Tom Cruise in the closet. Makes Tom Cruise pretty upset, but
Probably just looking for a dress shirt.
yeah.
Or Family Guy with Luke Perry.
With the what?
Family Guy had Luke Perry on an episode.
The pairing?
Luke Perry.
Oh, Luke Perry.
Yeah, Family Guy had him on an episode
Ah.
too.
Okay, true story types. Heroes, victims, villains.
Now, does anybody know who that is?
Yes. Dudley Do-Right.
Dudley Do-Right is our hero. Snidely Whiplash is our villain.
No.
And Nell is the victim, although I couldn't find I could find a picture with two of them with her tied to the train tracks, but I couldn't find a picture that had all three of them, except for, you know, Dudley Do-Right's voice there. So, true life is not so clear-cut that everyone is a hero, a victim, or a villain. But if you have to tell a story in 2 hours, you have to construct it in a way, you know, that gives you a narrative arc. And so people are put into the hero, victim, villain categories. Has anyone ever seen an inspirational teacher movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
I live it every day.
Yeah. Okay. So our
Some people are learning is
heroes
actually really good.
are very often teachers, journalists, lawyers, doctors. And so it's very easy to construct a narrative about these archetypes of heroism. Can anyone sum up a inspirational teacher movie for me?
Actually,
Which one?
think of one,
Any.
but-
Okay, I'm the teacher. I come into the classroom. What am I like? I'm charismatic and idealistic, and I'm all excited about teaching. What do you guys like?
We're
Who are
troublesome.
you?
We didn't
Disillusioned.
pay
You're a
attention.
hooligan.
Disillusioned.
I try my best when I'm coming up a brick wall. I go home
This
and I
stuff
say to
doesn't
Dr.
make any difference.
I go back to Dr. Wyland. I can't do it. I can't make a difference in their lives. And what does my supportive spouse say?
Find common ground.
Quit now. No.
And the administrator says,
Get in there.
you gotta stop that. You'll never teach these kids. You have to do it my way. But then I say,
No, do it
no,
now."
I'm gonna do it my way. I'm gonna put hip hop in the classroom, and I'm gonna stand on the tables, and we're gonna go out and have class in the
Okay, you're
woods."
not Ron Clark.
And then you're all changed. And at the end, when the semester's over, and you've won the championship or the big award,
It was all because she took a chance.
yeah, which is not to
Believe
say.
in you.
Exactly. But there are many, many inspirational teachers who make differences in people's lives. But if you've got to put it in the 2-hour arc, you got to have villains. Maybe the administration is supportive, but you got to have a villain. Maybe the spouse is not supportive, but you got to have the backup man. Yes, sir.
Is it bad if I thought Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was more entertaining than a Civil Nation or Civil Action?
I hate Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. They're completely unrelated movies. This is a fantastic story. Whether you like the movie or not, this is great because even though he goes up against the big corporations and fights and fights and fights, he loses. But,
Spoiler alert.
and this is the other exciting story. I was watching this movie, which is about the first black heart surgeon, and the doctor who performed experimental surgery on my father in 1970 with one of the very first open heart surgeries is a character in this movie. So he's not like one of the main characters, but I'm watching this movie and they say, Dr. Cooley, and I'm like, hey, wait, So that was very exciting. That's a very good inspirational movie.
Very inspirational.
Here's a couple other Tom Hanks heroes. Now,
Ew.
has anyone seen Sully?
Yes.
Okay, you know the story. Who has not seen this movie?
Leave now.
Who knows what happened? Who doesn't know what happened? Anyone here don't know about Sully?
You've got
Okay.
Crash landed
The
in
Sully,
water.
the whole Sully story takes place in like under 10 minutes.
Yep.
He's a pilot in New York. He takes off from New York. He gets over Manhattan, runs into a flock of geese. The plane's gonna crash, and he crashes it in the Hudson River. That's
Everybody's saved.
10
Spoiler
minutes.
alert.
But the computer says
What
that
is
you
the,
can make
what
it.
is this movie about?
So because it only takes 10 minutes, they had to build a whole story, and they had to create a conflict of like him going through the air safety board and them doubting him and whatever. They had to invent villains.
They said that
You know-
the plane would be able to survive it due to all the mechanics, but he's been flying for so
Yeah.
long, and he said no, the plane couldn't
Yeah,
have.
but that's all made up. That never happened. Like right away, everybody from the National Transportation Safety Board were like, "You're all right," but because everybody wanted to see this dramatic story of this great guy landing the plane, they created this structure around it. Meanwhile,
And then it got sued by Bud Light.
and this is your viewing. A lot of this is your viewing for this week.
Yeah.
This guy, again, he's he's driving a boat. He's in a cargo ship in the Indian Ocean. Pirates take over the ship. He ends up out on a lifeboat with the pirates. Navy, Coast Guard, military, I'm not sure
Navy
who.
SEALs.
Navy SEALs come, take out the pirates.
I actually remember when that was in the news.
Yeah, that was a big. So it's a fantastic story. It goes on for days, and there's the news
And
helicopters.
then they kill Tom Hanks. Spoiler alert.
So they don't, they don't.
But this guy, our hero, was just a guy on the boat who happened to be the guy who got taken hostage. It was luckily the guy who did not get shot. Everybody else on the boat was also taken hostage. It was a terrible situation, and although they were out of danger earlier than this guy, the construction of the story, of course, because he's the captain, even though he didn't do anything particularly heroic, makes him the hero. Well, meanwhile, the guys on the ship get really ticked off that this guy's getting all this attention and all this money, and Tom Hanks is playing him. So they file lawsuits, and they go out in the media, and they say, this guy's not a hero. We never should have been in those waters to begin with. This guy put us all in danger, and as a matter of fact, he's no good. And the real guy, when he's confronted on 60 Minutes with this, it's like, no, I never said I was a hero. I said I was there, and the pirates came, and then I was on the lifeboat, and then I was sitting, and he's really great in his interviews when he's talking about the fact that on the radio, he's like saying, I'm in this seat, I'm in seat number whatever, because he just wants to keep making sure that the Navy SEALs know when they shoot everybody else in the lifeboat, this is where I'm sitting, I'm not moving. So he was both heralded as a hero and made this huge star, and played by Tom Hanks, and then torn down by the media and critics of, oh, you're a huge loser. So, would you want, you see when people rescue babies from a burning building, like, oh, I'm not a hero, I was just doing whatever. No, you're a hero. But you can see the concern about being lifted up in Hollywood greatness, because as soon as you are lifted up, the people are lining up to take you down. And because most stories are far more complicated than terrible situation, one person, rose ahead and saved everybody else. As long as people are alive. So if they do make a story making you the hero, just hope everybody else is dead. That way, nobody will be there to argue with you. And think about who would play you in the life story of your life.
Weird Al.
Victims. Okay, so these people have got problems. These people have been hit by a tsunami. These people are about to crash in a terrorist
Is that
plane.
United? Is that
That's
the-
United 93. And these people are miners in Chile who are gonna be stuck underground in a collapsed mine for, I can't remember how long, 10 days or something like that? A while.
Yeah, it was like a couple months, I think. I remember when it was in the news and it was wild.
Let's cut the difference. I think it was close to a month. It was a while. I don't know, it was a couple months. But it was longer than a month, I think. Anyway, they got in.
They all
So-
died.
No, they didn't.
It did not. So these are tricky because action and drama and danger are compelling stories, but people don't really line up to watch misery. So none of these films was a particularly big hit because it's much more exciting to go watch Tom Hanks, crash land the plane, which is all, exciting and everyone comes out victorious, than watching people suffer for 2 to 3 hours. Watching these guys down there in the dark, it's a great story when you tell it on the news. Sometimes hard to get people over. However, I strongly recommend United 93. Yes?
About the Chilean,
Uh-huh.
it says 69 days.
69 days. Longer than a month. Not as long as 2 months.
It's
No!
longer than 2 months.
2 months. Okay, I don't have any math. You win. You win.
It says they were rescued after 69 days.
69.
You win. So these are all actually good movies. I would recommend them all.
I don't know if
But my point is, heroes tend to get a bigger audience than victims. And villains. People love the villains. This was not a huge hit, but that's on your list, and I recommend it because this is based on a writer for a magazine, I think the New Republic, hotshot young writer, big star, getting all the stories. Everybody loves him. He's a cut up in the meetings. He made it all up. So this is a very respected magazine, and then these are the other people in the magazine, and they have to face the fact that now their entire reputation of their respective magazine has gone down the tubes because they were so willing to believe anything this guy said, even though a lot of it was kind of shady, because he was charming and charismatic, and even though they were in the business of being professional journalists, they still let this sort of stuff slide. Everybody's lying to you. So this is Bernie Madoff, who stole everybody's money.
Bernie.
Anybody see this one?
No, but we
I heard it
different.
was awful.
Well, I mean, seriously. No, no. Unlike other movies that I've been like, don't do that. This is hardcore pornography. This is some seriously nasty stuff. And this guy is a horrible, horrible person. This is based on his memoir.
What did he
So
do?
no.
He was a trader on Wall Street, and he cheated and he stole a lot of money, and then finally the feds got him and he went to prison, and
The Wizard of Lies.
he then wrote a book about how awful he was, but I'm not awful anymore.
Hayden Christensen.
But he's played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and his wife is played by Margot Robbie, who's in the
Suicide
Joker.
Squad.
Yeah, Suicide Squad.
Harley Quinn.
So nobody had ever seen it before either. So, you've got these beautiful movie stars, especially this guy, playing a really heinous person, but because it's like, oh, I did my time, that's all behind me. He's made out to be the hero because all of this terrible stuff he does, and it's really like, 2.5 hours of him taking drugs and having graphic sex. But, oh well, it's Leonardo DiCaprio. They could have played this very differently if it was played by someone who was not a big movie star, or changed the tone to say, this guy's the sleazeball of all time. It probably wouldn't have done so well. Because nobody wants to see, like, a jerky sleazeball take drugs and have a lot of sex. Ooh, but everybody wants to see Leo. So, that point of view is changed to sell the film. And also because it's based on his memoir. And then he made a lot more money. Not only did he rip everybody off, but then he made the money for selling a story. Okay, so let's
Official
talk
vote.
about
Obama's drinking my house party.
another source of true stories.
Addicted to food, can't go a day without it.
Now,
I would
before
hope
you
so.
kids and your interwebs, we had the tabloid magazines. We still have tabloid magazines, but they're not nearly as pervasive as your Facebook.
World Weekly
Share.
News was the best.
Yeah.
Charlie,
So, yeah. And you know, these are all published by the same publisher right here in Florida.
Oh,
All this news comes from the same place. And they specialize some, I don't know about that one,
I
but.
think that's a fake one.
Yeah, but some specialize in the alien stories and the Bat Baby, and some are all about sex, and some are all about movie stars, and some are, you know, miracle weight loss, that sort of thing. I have no more to say about this, other than these purport to be news, these all purport to be true stories, and people rarely ever, sometimes they do, but they rarely ever sue the tabloids because, oh, why even bother? You know, because.
World Weekly News is always true.
Any of you ever watch the Lifetime channel? These are some of the fine titles off of the Lifetime channel.
A little thing called murder.
Yes, which his entire business model is taking tawdry news stories and making them even tawdrier. Now,
Happy Face Killer. That's
the other films that I've been showing you have all been big name films, big money, big stars, you know, wide distribution, a lot of money involved. These things are made on the cheap, and the people who are telling their true stories are getting paid for their true stories. Now, I ask you, would you have the motivation to perhaps spice up your true story a little bit if they were going to pay you more money the spicier it was? So,
I would be tempted, but on my honor to God, I can't.
no, I would not peg you as someone who would sell your life story to Lifetime.
You have to guess which one of those is my life story.
Yeah.
Big Killer Among Us,
A killer among us.
Killer Among Us.
along with Beautiful and Twisted.
Abducted. Happy face killer.
I thought you would say Beautiful and Twisted.
That's that one, that's hers.
Happy face killer, that one.
So, this is what you want to be asking. Is it true? What kind of true is it? Is it true in that some of the events happened, but we can't know exactly what happened on United 93? Or is it true in All the President's Men, in that every single day there was a newspaper story about it, and so you can go back and read the newspaper every day for 18 months, you know, and you know, track it that way? How has the story been altered? You know, we've talked about this, you know, every week, of condensing it, combining it, and in this case, spicing it up considerably. One of the interesting changes, did anyone see The Impossible, the one about the tsunami? This is a true story, but the family that this happened to were Spanish, I believe. They were from Spain. But since it's an American company making it, Americans are not going to pay as much money to go see Spanish people get hit by a tsunami as they are going to pay for English speakers. And so it was, I don't know if they were supposed to be English or, because Naomi Watts is from Australia, but Ewan McGregor is from Scotland. In any event,
They're English speakers.
the English-speaking people is going to, you know, because, you know, I suppose if they had it be Salma Hayek and Antonio Banderas, we probably would have gone. But, so, you know, that's a pretty major alteration. It didn't affect the actual steps that she had to go through to survive, but it's a pretty big change. Genre. I showed you a couple that were comedies, or satire, or horror. You know, how would they have to alter your life, McKenna, to make it into a horror tale?
Not
They
at
have to say
all.
I'm stuck at Southeastern for life.
So, you know, I think if we were going to make Dr. Winelands, it would definitely be the inspirational teacher movie.
Exactly.
Me would be the satirical comedy.
Yeah, I'd be stuck here for life. That would be my
I'd
horror.
stand on the desk
I'd never
and
get to
afraid I'd
graduate.
break it.
Yes. So what is the point of view? Are they making these characters heroes, villains, victims? Are they really, you know, like the Wolf of Wall Street guy who they made him into a hero even though he's a total slime bucket?
That movie was entertaining.
It was something to remember. And was there a controversy? Now, this is really easy to find because we're not talking about ancient and biblical. You know, we're not talking about some period drama that happened in the Middle Ages. All of the movies and books on your list have come out in the days of modern journalism. So if there are people saying, oh, it's all a lie, or I was misrepresented, or that's not true, or they left something out, was there a big stink about it? And in some cases, there was a really big stink about, like, Captain Phillips. People stood to profit. In the case of The Impossible, where they changed the family from one nationality to another, that was an interesting side note that came out in interviews. But the Spanish family, you know, they got paid for their story, and no one else was in a position to profit from them changing the nationalities, and no one's going to sue over that. So if there's a controversy over it, is it because people are really motivated to make sure this true story is told, or because they're trying to get a little bit of the cash?
Cash.
On your sources, boring is best. The newspaper that comes out, the Time magazine that is just reporting the facts is, you know, reputable news sources are the best news sources. If you want to find out exactly the events of the hijacking in Captain Phillips, the best place to look for it is if you can go back and get, you know, watch the CNN coverage, because they covered a lot of it, and it's not condensed into 2 hours, but you can see the order. This is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. So, you know, recreations, dramatizations are a great and fun way, but real reporting, real journalism, real investigation, real research is the boring sources. And for this week, you can go to boring sources for all of these things. Do we have any questions about based on true story? Yes, sir.
For events that, should we say how can we say how to be accurate when we're just basing it from people's opinions from movies or of books?
What's yours?
Mine's is basically, it's called Into Thin Air, an expedition into Everest gone wrong.
There is a ton of news reporting on that. That was being reported as it happened. We knew that those people were stranded on that mountain while they were stranded. It was on, you know, CNN, because we live in an age of modern communications. And so when those people were trapped up there, they were calling their spouses and saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get back down or not. And then when they did get down, they all talked to reporters. And I believe John Krakauer was up there, wasn't he? Wasn't he one of them?
I believe so.
Yeah. Also, this is where, and this is reputation that I talked about, remember to use that guide, you know, that's in your syllabus. One of the things we're talking about is source. You could say, well, like in the case of the 3 cups of tea guy, or the Million Tiny Little Pieces guy, who didn't have any reputation before that. They came out of nowhere, and they told these stories, and everybody believed them. John Krakauer, however, is an established, respected, best-selling journalist who has a whole history, a whole track record. So the source, if you can say, well, okay, this is written by John Krakauer, who has stood up the test of time, and I believe him because he has this great reputation, and he experienced it, that's not so much opinion. also, they're not saying, boy, it seemed really snowy on Mount Everest. No, we have the meteorology, you can look up, yes, it was a storm like no other. Why were these people up here? A lot of the problems of the Mount Everest thing was that people who have no business climbing mountains, because there are so many services now, they're like, oh, we're gonna take you up the mountain. People who have no survival skills are now going up Mount Everest. So, all of that plays in, and all of that is verifiable. Did it really snow? Yes, it did.
Was it really cold? Yes, it was.
Or was it Florida cold? Okay. Oh, it's gonna be 68. Anyway,
Yay.
we have still a couple of minutes, so let me remind you about tomorrow night.
Let me throw something else out there too.
Yes.
I don't know when, but at some point, you're going to have to turn in the next stage of your paper, which is,
I think it's this week.
all right, you should address that. There are two of you still, McKenna and Paxton, who have not sent in your proposal yet.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
you haven't told us yet what you're gonna write your paper on.
Cleo.
Okay,
So.
well, you're not gonna get your 20 points, so you tell us what it is.
You turn it in on MyFire, so you get your points. And this week, of course, we've upped the ante to have more of an outline of the whole thing. So
Dr. Weiland, what will you be wanting in that paper?
I will be wanting clear and convincing analysis. How's that? To analyze a film, to take a look at it. Is it true? Could you use it in class? Is it really telling history? Because people use these films. Most people don't read anything. They certainly don't read history because they don't like it. So they don't read many books, but they go and watch films. So the films can maybe get people interested, and then maybe they'll go read something about it. So the idea here is using the film really going to do a service, or is it doing a disservice?
And you also want them to have a bibliography at this point?
Got to have a bibliography, of course.
And also expanding of the larger point of not just looking at the book or the movie, but everything else you're looking at.
Yeah, you're looking at how it all fits together and how we might use it. You look at and analyze it. Yeah.
So I know you said from earlier, this is just expanding on the previous paper we did. So like for mine, I'm doing it on the imitation game. So
Yeah.
I'm almost done with this, so if I finish it, can I just submit it Sunday?
Submit the paper.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that would be all right if you're that far along. Yeah.
You'll still want to submit it again, because you get, I think it's 50 points for
Yeah.
this.
It's but be sure that
And then if
almost
he has
finished,
changes, you can revise it and change it again, yeah.
But make sure you have the bibliography. Sometimes when people say they're almost done, they don't turn in any bibliography or anything, they just have a lot of text. So be sure it's in a form that can be, coherent.
Also, I believe he has been very lenient on formatting and
to
Turabian
this
style
point.
up to this point. You want to really lock it down
So
on,
remember, the formatting is called Turabian or the Chicago Manual Style, which are the same thing. And you can search that on Google, because Turabian is just the name of the woman who wrote a summary of the Chicago Manual Style. So she worked for the University of Chicago, and everyone would always ask her questions, so she made a summary thing, give them, and then eventually she decided to publish it, and now there's been, 20 editions, I don't know how many editions of that, and she updates it every time the Chicago Manual Style is updated.
Dr.
Yes.
Wiley, got a question?
The outline bibliography, is the turn-in thing available on MyFire now? Because I've checked MyFire and there was no,
For the bibliography.
There's no slot for it yet.
it's not to turn in the bibliography and outline.
Yeah.
I'll
For the
double
memoir,
check it today. I think it's there, but I'll double check it. If it isn't, it'll be there.
For the memoir, there's nothing there either.
What's that?
For the memoir, there's nothing there either.
Okay, I'll check it. I'll check it today, tomorrow.
Someday.
You gotta get your slots up there.
Slots, gotta have the slots. That's why I go to Vegas. All right, so I hope to see you tomorrow night.
That's not mandatory.
If you want some extra credit. But otherwise, it's up to you. Okay,
Back to work.
we'll see you later.